Hello and good evening. We're going to start here in just a moment. Thank you for your patience. We have one board member who is on her way here, so we waited a couple minutes to get started. We do, however, have Director Johnson with us virtually, and Director Jackson may be joining us virtually as well. I believe that is the plan. So I now call this board workshop of the South Whidbey School Board to order. I'm going to turn it over to Director Greenherron for our land acknowledgement.
South Whidbey School District would like to begin by acknowledging that we gather on the ancestral homelands, originally known as Chikolche and Lushootseed, of the coastal Salish peoples, on the lands of the Lower Skagit, Tulalip, Swinomish, Snohomish, Stillaguamish, and Suquamish, who have lived in the Salish Sea Basin since time immemorial and have hunted, fished, gathered, and taken care of these lands. We respect their sovereignty, their right to self-determination, and we honor their sacred spiritual connection with the land and water. Please join me in expressing our deepest respect and gratitude to the Indigenous people of this territory and for their enduring care and protection of the land in which we currently occupy and share through the Treaty of Point Elliott, signed by 82 tribes in Mukilteo on January 22nd, 1855.
Thank you very much. As this is a board workshop, we will be not just allowing, but looking for comment from all those present, both in person and virtually, on the topics on the agenda. If for some reason someone would like to make comment and needs an accommodation, please let Ms. Maccaro know ahead of time, and we can make sure that we provide anything necessary to allow for comfortable comment. If you are on the Zoom meeting and would like to make a comment at some point, please use the Q&A function, which is under the More button on the Zoom control panel. And just use it first to enter your name and location. That will let us know to pause the conversation while you type up your comment, so that we're not 3 topics further on by the time you make your comment. Along those same lines, please, if you're in the Zoom meeting and want to make a comment, please make it more than just "I agree with that," because most likely by the time we see it and read it, we will be 1 or 2 topics further on, and you may not agree with what was just said. So please say, "I agree with whatever you agree with," or "I disagree with whatever you disagree with," and why, just so we can all keep on the same page. We have a number of specific topics tonight, so we will be moving from one to the next, and we will be encouraging comments and questions on the topic as we are discussing it. Once we've moved on from a topic, we're going to stick with the topic that we've gone on with, unless there's a comment that comes in and we need to pause for that from Zoom. When we get to a business meeting and have general public comment, we now have a clock on the wall. You can't see it because the curtain is in place, but there's now a clock. If you were at the last one, you've seen it in action, but it should make things a little clearer about time limits, about the 5-minute time limit for the general purpose public comment during a business meeting, so that we're not relying on silent hand signals or anything like that to try to make it clear when time is getting close and reaching the end. Just to make it a little bit more open and clear as to what's going on, because in keeping with our policy 0002 of professional communications, we want to be clear and precise and preserve the dignity of all involved on both sides of any conversation. And that's one way we can work towards that. I think that's everything for the public comment protocol. So we'll move on. I know that Director Downs will be here shortly, so that's why I've taken a little bit of extra time to go a little more in depth in this, but we can move on to our next topic. So I will turn it over to Dr. Clifford for the South Whidbey Community Microgrid Feasibility Study Update.
Great, thank you so much. So You all approved in an earlier business meeting a couple months ago for the microgrid feasibility study to be moved forward through the City of Langley and Energize Langley. And so they are going to do a community update on March 18th, and they did a review with us. And so they're going to do a quick high-level review with the board today so that you can ask questions and get some information on what is going to be shared with the community. And one of the things that this will allow us to do is see the outcome of the study and some good information about the community center and what's possible potentially in future steps with the microgrid study. And also for us to be really clear about some um, um, con considerations that we need to recognize about our current reality of the community center's facility age and things that are connect to the goals of the microgrid study, but are not directly included in the microgrid study. So I'm going to hand it over to our folks online, I think.
Thank you. My name's Josh Miller with Cascadia Renewables, and we were the design partner for the Energize Langley program. Just want to see if Joan and anyone from their team wants to introduce and say a few words before I dive into my presentation.
Yeah,
If you could hold on just a moment, we're turning the volume up in the room so we can hear you better.
great. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Is that good? Yeah. Okay.
That's better. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Josh. Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Joan Green. I live in Langley, and I'm the project manager for Energize Langley, where our team is handling the project management and the outreach for the Energize Langley project through the city. And I also have Ellen Southard here from Story, and she's part of our outreach team as well. And I think Josh is going to start the presentation. And I think Linda Irvine might also be in the room there. Is Linda at the meeting? Yep. Okay,
Yes,
great.
she is.
Nice. Great. So yeah, we're going to be starting the presentation in just a minute here, and just wanted to kind of give a recap of what Energize Langley is about. Again, we did present beforehand, I guess a couple of months ago about, before we started the study with you all. But just to recap, the City of Langley received a $250,000 grant from the Department of Commerce for the microgrid feasibility studies. And if you don't already know, microgrids are the electric power systems that use solar and backup batteries to help residents keep the grid reliable and then also perform resilience during an emergency or an outage. So again, reliability, keeping the grid going during normal conditions, and resilience is to make sure that the grid can withstand major outages, which we have here pretty often. And so the Energize Langley team was put together by the city of Langley. And again, it's our two teams together that make Energize Langley work. And we worked with the city and community members to identify 11 different sites that could potentially have a feasibility study. And then together we all whittled it down to 3. And so the South Woodby Community Center is one of the sites, along with the Woodby Island Fairgrounds and St. Hubert Church. So those are the 3 sites that we're studying for the feasibility studies. And tonight, Josh will be presenting the microgrid design for the community center. And then in the future, we'll also need to identify ways to fund these projects, because the $250,000 was just for the planning stage of this project. But our team with locally, we're kicking gas, and also Site Story and other volunteers in the community are really willing and eager to help the school board and the school district to find funds that can help build these projects. Thank you. I think Josh will take it away.
Great. Thank you, Joan. I will say, just for everyone looking, that picture of us all standing out there, that was the day of the site visits of all of these projects. And that was the morning of your terrible windstorm that knocked your power out. So it was kind of perfect timing for us to be out there kicking this project off.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm going to do kind of a real quick version this evening, and then we will send out a copy of this presentation to anyone who wants to take a look at it. And then we have a longer version that we went over with Dr. Clifford a couple weeks ago. And then we're in the final process of submitting the full feasibility design and report, which you guys should be receiving in the next 2 to 3 weeks from us. So this is kind of the last step before you guys get the full report. Um, so as far as the project of what we determined after being on site is we looked at all of the facilities there, and what we determined was that you have a really nice south roof at the south end of the community center where quite a bit of solar panels could go. And then over along the west side, you had another low roof where we determined that we could fit some additional solar panels. And then all of the power would be routed along the interior courtyard back to the little blue box that you see there in the middle of the courtyard, and that's where the battery energy storage system would be centrally located. That location was chosen because it's right next to the main electric room. And then the other reason it was chosen is it's in close proximity to the gym there in the west side. We chose the gym as the location that this solar system and resiliency hub would power because the main part of the community center is actually rented out. And then on the day we were there with the power outage, there was no way to actually get in and look at the classes, and that was or look at the classrooms, and so that was a big wake-up call that last thing we want to do is have community members arriving there and then have all these classrooms locked up. So we looked at the gym because the gym has several things going for it. It's a large facility that could house quite a few people. It could work as both a heating and cooling shelter for community members. There's the gymnasium has locker rooms where people could change, bathroom and shower facilities, and there is the cafeteria area. And we'll get into some of those details a little more. Um, but the biggest thing is we just wanted a single location to heat and cool and get the maximum advantage out of this project. So the quick design overview is we ended up putting a design together for a 138 kilowatt system that interconnects into the grid at 100 kilowatts. And 100 kilowatts was chosen very specifically because here in Washington, that is the largest project that you can put in and still get full retail rate energy crediting from the utility company. So this design will really maximize the day-to-day, month-to-month, year-to-year savings that you guys would see from this project in those other 99% of the time when the power is on and operating normally. When the power does go down, we have designed in a large commercial battery that's a 250 kilowatt peak output with over 1.2 megawatts or 1,252 kilowatt hours of energy storage capacity. And I'll get into that a little bit more here. But what we did after the site visit is we analyzed multiple years of electric bills there at the site. And the top curve that you're looking at is actually the energy usage profile of the building. And so again, this is another reason why we looked at the gym is that when you look at the overall consumption, there's a lot of old electric heat and you have really, really high consumption right in the dead of winter in January, December, January at both ends there, which would make running this facility with a battery very difficult. So that was another reason to focus on a smaller area to power. The curve on the bottom shows the energy production from that large solar system. And you can see that like during the middle of the summer, we're going to be offsetting 75 to 80% of the electric load there at the community center, but again, dipping during the winter months. So the solar system we modeled in a 3D solar modeling program that looks at 25 years worth of weather data, and then it takes into account all the shading conditions and then it shows us real world lighting conditions. And that's kind of the image that you see on the right there. Um, this system then, like I said, is a 138 kilowatt system. The initial design that we've put together here has 239 of the latest. They're very large 580 watt panels. And then we are going to install a single solar edge inverter. That's a commercial inverter that would connect right into the 480 volt three-phase power that you guys have there at the community center. Um, the next thing here that's really important is the module level shutdown and web-based monitoring. So on these community type projects, two of the things that come up are safety and the ability for you guys to know what's going on there once an installer leaves the project. So with this design that we've put together, each solar panel would have an individual rapid shutdown unit. So if at any time a solar panel were to have a short, there was a short in the wiring, a failure of a panel, anything goes wrong with this system, these rapid shutdown units would kick in, automatically disconnect each solar panel, and get the system back to safe. So it can shut down individual panels, groups of panels, or even the whole system. And it does it all automatically within a few milliseconds of detecting an error. So that really makes it where even though you guys don't have people on site, the system will self-regulate and self-monitor and then self-correct if there's any problems. It does include the web-based monitoring. So you could have web apps that you guys could see from anywhere, anybody's smartphone, any hallway. You could have like a lobby computer, and you guys could promote that you did solar on the project. That web monitoring does give anyone the ability to see how that's performing, see if any of those rapid shutdown units are triggered, or just use it simply for you could use it for student science classes. There's a lot of curriculum that's being developed around students looking at these monitoring systems. So we really wanted to try to make it where there's multiple benefits to you when it's not in need during a power outage. This system would produce about 130,000 kilowatt hours of energy, which over the course of the year would offset just shy of 30% of the facility's annual costs for Puget Sound Energy. I mentioned it earlier, but this is a net metered design. So that does get you the maximum return on investment. And it is 100 kilowatts is the cutoff. And so we did it right to 100 kilowatts. When installing solar, one of the big things is the total solar resource fraction. Another reason we chose this site is there's very limited trees. There's the one tree that's quite a ways off the south side. So even though there's east and west facing roofs, some of the roofs are kind of low tilt. You're still going to get 83% of what a perfectly south-facing solar array at 45 degrees would get. So anything over 70% is considered a good site. The part of the reason why we chose these lower roofs on the south side is we wanted you guys to be able to get up there and clean the panels or have your own service personnel hose the panels, clean the panels off once a year without having to contract for a really expensive third-party cleaning service. So all of the designs have 4-foot service access and fire walkways around them on the roofs. That's what the orange hash marks are. And then they're all accessible from a basic 10-foot step ladder. And then it's really low tilt roofs that anyone could easily walk around on up there. So we really tried to keep this for the long-term maintenance and upkeep costs right to a minimum. So the products that were quoted into this design are the Hylene solar panels. So the solar panels come with two different 25-year warranties. One of them is the basic product warranty. So if anything fails on any of those solar panels, it is covered for a full 25 years. Then if the solar panels start to degrade a bit, as all electric equipment does, the newest solar panels actually guarantee that at year 25, this system would still be giving you at least 86% production of what it did day one when it was bolted on the roof. So this is really a long-term project where you guys would be saving money for several decades. And with With that, then the solar edge inverter, the active electrical component of this, it does come with a 12-year warranty that could be extended up to 20 years. That warranty does just flat out cover a full replacement if it were to fail. Um, those little individual optimizer power units that go on each solar panel then that do the web monitoring and the safety shutoff, those have a 100% warranty for 25 years as well. And then the Iron Ridge racking system that would be mounting to the roof also has the 25 years. So we really tried to make this where once we work through the initial capital outlay of the project, that there wouldn't be a lot of ongoing replacement and warranty costs with these. So for the battery systems, this is where there's really been a revolution in the solar industry. The last several decades, we've really only had small residential batteries. But in the last several years, there's been a big move towards large commercial batteries. For this project, we partnered with a company called ELM. These batteries are produced in Texas. Each one of those white battery units that you're looking at the right are about the size of a large double door refrigerator, just for sake of looking at them. These batteries have the latest, what they call LFP battery chemistry. They're different than standard lithium batteries, that they don't have the thermal runaway and fire issues that there's a lot of random videos on YouTube that freak people out. And that's really older style batteries. These new batteries are very, very safe. All of the battery systems would have an integrated multi-level fire protection system built directly into the enclosure. It does liquid cooling of the batteries, so it keeps them operating efficiently during the peak of the summer. The battery system then is also have a cloud-based web monitoring that would allow you guys to know in real time how it's performing. And unlike other batteries out there that maybe only have a 2 to 5 year warranty, these new commercial batteries have a 15-year warranty that comes with them. The great part about the battery systems is these can be reconfigured in the future. So if Puget Sound Energy were to change your rate structure, or if anyone has ever lived in California where they charge different rates at different times of day, these batteries would be able to be reprogrammed and reconfigured to maximize the savings from the system. So right now they would be configured just to be there in an emergency standby mode for the resiliency center. But if the PSE suddenly started charging you large daily demand charges, say over the noon hour, you could program the battery to discharge during that time and eliminate those new demand charges. So it's a really flexible system. Again, I just want to reconfirm that this is backing up the gymnasium only. This is not designed to back up the whole facility, but the solar system does tie into the whole facility with the solar power kind of flowing around to wherever the energy is needed. And then it's only when the power goes out and the resiliency center is needed does the center disconnect from the utility grid, and then that's when the battery kicks on and powers up the gym only. So the battery when we looked at the site, we thought that the best location is kind of in this grassy area right in the center courtyard. We would put it far to the north, close to that large bush. And this is about 20 feet away from the main electric room. And then the gym that would be powered is over there to the left with the orange wall. So this kind of seemed like the best location. This is something, again, this is a feasibility study, so you guys could definitely adjust the final location if you guys did move forward with the project. But based upon all of the fire codes, there's quite significant fire reviews and fire codes. This was the best location that keeps it away, 10 feet away from all of the buildings, property lines, vegetation, any safety hazards. The battery system could be have a full fence around it. It could be a wood enclosure that could hide it from the public and protect it from anyone in the public or students if there was anyone around. That's really more of an aesthetics thing because the battery enclosure is a fully locked metal enclosure that is quite safe. So This site, then, when we modeled it, we broke down the individual electric panels that we would be powering in the gym. And we ran some software scenarios that we have using a battery modeling program. And we ran several scenarios saying, let's pack that gym full of people. Let's have lights on, kitchen going, people there staying overnight. And we said if we just ran everything outright, um, what kind of resiliency or hours of autonomy would you have? And hours of autonomy just means if the power drops off, the battery kicks on, and you ran everything on site, this is how long we could run it with very little solar production and keep the battery running. So in the dead of winter, we would be able to provide 24 hours of battery autonomy with the smaller option we're proposing and upwards of 32 hours with the larger option. As we've moved through this, I believe on the final feasibility, we're going to settle in on just the option two as we've gotten some more details from the staff there. Um, the nice thing is with that large solar array, once we move into spring, summer, and early fall, we would be able to provide continuous 24/7 operation to the resiliency center at the gym. So if there was a major earthquake and people had to shelter there for several days or potentially several weeks during the middle of the summer, it would be able to run that entire part of the community center continuously through the solar production, recharging it each day. Um, then, as we start to move into the fall, the days get shorter. We'd be looking at 65 to 80 hours. So 2 to 3 days of resiliency, hours of autonomy there on site. So it's quite good for a site that doesn't have a generator. If you were to add a generator to this at a later date, a generator could be added where during the winter time when you only have the 24 hours, at the end of the 24 hours, the generator could kick on, run for 2 or 3 hours, charge the battery back up, and then you could get another 24 hours out of this battery system. So you can add a generator, but then not have to run it 24 hours a day. You'd be just 1, 2, maybe 3 hours a day, depending on how many people were there in the facility. So this is quite a complicated graph, but I'll do the quickie version is the blue that you see on the graph here is the building using power from the utility grid. And then right where the pink line is, this is the battery state of charge. And so this is saying, hey, the power drops off, and this is a January dispatch graph. So we're assuming the shortest day of the year when the solar is producing the least. The power drops off, and then you'll start to consume energy, which is the green coming from the battery. And so it shows how over that 31 and a half hours, the battery would slowly run out. And you would be getting a little bit of charge from the yellow there in the bottom when the sun peaks over the horizon there in the middle of January, but it would run out in that 32 hours. And then it shows kind of, hey, maybe there's another day with the power out. Then the power kicks back on, and then the grid would automatically recharge the battery. Here's that same dispatch graph, but if it were to happen in the middle of summer. So this is the way we ran it is assuming that we had just used the battery for something else, so that we were actually going into this power outage with the battery down at just a 20% state of charge. But the nice thing is with this big solar array, there's so much energy production that it would exceed the usage of the building, which is the black line. And then there would be so much extra solar production that we would be recharging the battery while also powering the resiliency center in the gym. Then at night, it dips a little bit. It would recharge at the end of the second day. And then you could sustain continuously with the solar recharging the battery every day and keep this hub operating. So the basic way it works is everything that you have on the right here, you have the utility power coming into your meter, you have a main distribution panel with several sub panels spread around the school. everything to the left of the main distribution panel would be added as part of this project. There's a microgrid relay, which is the computer relay, which automatically does all of the features that I've been talking about. It'll disconnect this battery from the grid. This sits between your main distribution panel and a new main distribution, what we call the point of common coupling panel that we would put in. This new electric panel then would feed down to the backup loads, which in this case would be the gym and all of the associated rooms connected with that. And then that panel is fed by two things. It's fed by the solar on the top, and then we have the batteries on the bottom. And then if you were to add a generator, the generator would simply plug right into that same panel, and it would all work in conjunction and all be controlled by that microgrid relay. So it is already set up that a generator could easily be added at a later date. The issues that we came into, so this is always the hard part about feasibility, is that we like that we figure out the way to get the project on there, but then we also like to determine the issues that need to be overcome. So the thing about these commerce grants is they are renewable energy grants. So they will fund, if you were to apply for, say, one of the Department of Commerce grants, they will fund up to $2.5 million per project for solar and battery systems, but they don't do building upgrades in those, and they don't provide for generators. So they will give you a large chunk of money, but then you kind of have to have your site ready. So what we found is that the TPO roof, the white membrane roof that's on the community center, is over 20 years old. There's quite a significant amount of bubbling and damage, as I'm sure some of you know, that really, until that roof is replaced, I would not recommend moving forward with a solar project. When the roof goes on, then the solar project could go on. You'd have a 20 to 30-year warranty on the roof. You'd have that 25-year warranty on the solar system and battery. And then you would have a nice package that you guys wouldn't have to worry about. The team at Kicking Gas in Langley there has volunteered to help assist with finding additional grant sources that could potentially help fund the re-roof of the community center. The whole gym and all of the other surrounding buildings don't need to be re-roofed. It's just the membrane, the lower membrane roof. The other thing, as we've been working with the facilities managers there, is they have determined that there are some plumbing issues with the bathroom, and there are some potential upgrades for the kitchen that if you were to decide to be a resiliency center host, that you would want to do some upgrades there as well. And again, these would be in need of some additional funding sources. And then the fourth bullet there is mentioning the backup generator. So really, I think there are some opportunities here for fundraising and additional grants to bundle to do the site upgrades, and then the solar and battery would be a different grant submittal from the Department of Commerce. So as part of our feasibility design, we get this project ready to where you guys could send it out for a design build RFP under standard school contracting terms. We've worked with several schools around all over Washington, and we work with several installers to find the latest prices on equipment. We've run this through several people on installation costs, and then we give you kind of the low, average, and high costs of what you might expect if you were to issue a public RFP and get responses back from several installers around the state. The key to really look at here is the middle cost estimate. This is what we'd expect it to come in at. It's about 1.6 million for the full install of the solar, battery, new main electric panel, and all of the gear and infrastructure that I've been talking about. With about 80% of that cost coming from the cost of the battery and about 20% of that coming from the cost of the solar. So I have a few design decisions this can be at a different meeting, but we just had some we'll include in the presentation about like where conduits are run, where the batteries run. But that's kind of more down the road as part of the RFP question. And we'll provide you guys with a copy of the things that we'd want you to think about before moving forward with a project. So really where we're at is we've been working for about 6 months now. We are in the final throes of getting these together for you. We're presenting now. The feasibility reports, as I mentioned, will be coming to you guys in early April. And then for anyone who wants to attend and hear about the other two sites at the fairgrounds and St. Hubert Church, we're having a big community presentation on March 18th at St. Hubert's Church. So it's anybody else who missed this and wants to hear about solar in general, we'll be doing a little solar 101 to just kind of help the community get their heads wrapped around the idea of these resiliency centers. Then it's really up to your team to consider the funding pathways and grant writing efforts. The past several years, there have been multiple grants from the Department of Commerce. They haven't released details on this year's funding round or upcoming funding rounds, but us and the team at Energize Langley would be happy to be there to assist with any of that grant writing. The way we put our feasibility study together is 90% of what you need for applying for one of the grants is already written in the study, and somebody just needs to do the initial why we should get this right up. Then it really comes down to we will provide you with the feasibility study that has a 30% design set. So this does make it where it could be a design build RFP. And we call it a design build RFP is because we're not providing stamped final drawings. It gives a bit of flexibility to the solar installer to choose the latest solar panel and batteries that's available at the moment that the RFP comes out. And then if you guys were successful in raising the funds for the roof and getting the grant, we're looking at right now it's about a 12 to 18 month turnaround to get these projects contracted, installed, and up and running for the community. It's an exciting project, but just so everyone's aware, we'd probably be looking at about 2 years out before you'd have a local resiliency center up and running. And so with that, I'll leave it there. As I mentioned, I will forward a copy of the presentation on to anyone who wants it. And then anyone who wants to attend that meeting on the 18th, I'll be there for giving that talk. It'll be about an hour and a half talk about all three sites. And then I'll be there afterwards to answer any questions to anyone in the community if other thoughts come up as you guys discuss this further.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to recognize the team that's on. This is a collective team effort, and on our team, Mr. Lawson and Gail's last name, Lavasser, Miss Lavasser, and then Mr. Field has bopped in and out at different points in the process. So we've been working really closely as a team to try to support this. And this is really a collective effort because we recognize that the community center is intended to be self-sustaining and that our funds are dedicated to our schools and that our community center has a lot of work to be done. And so one of the things that I received earlier this serendipitously last week was information on a federal grant. And so I'm so grateful for the folks at Energize Langley because they helped to do some letters on behalf of the city and Energize Langley. And we got a number of letters. Ms. Lavasser led the charge and she submitted that grant and probably submitted 10 to 12 letters. So we are already starting the process of making sure that we can get support because regardless of if we go in this direction, there's still work to be done to support the sustainability of the community center, knowing that we need external resources to do that.
Well, thank you very much for the preview on your major presentation coming up soon. I know that I would love to get a copy of the presentation to attach to the agenda for those who come and look at the agenda later on and are curious to scroll through it themselves. I have a couple of questions, but before I get to mine, I'd like to open it up for anyone else who's here and has questions on this project. It's a workshop. Yes, please.
Couple questions. One clarifying. So the end cost is 1.8, and I think we're starting with a $250,000 rate. Kind of like, is that what I understand? And then the rest would be grants and things of that nature. Is that correct?
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
So the total estimate on the install costs we're looking at is approximately 1.6 million. The 250,000 has been the fee to provide for all of the community design work, engineering, all of the work that has gone into the 11 sites over the past 6 months. So that there's two branches from Department of Commerce. There's one that funds feasibility studies, which the 250,000 was for. And then if you've gone through the feasibility process, it puts you kind of a step ahead when you apply for the second round of grant funding, which is the full funding for the solar plus battery storage system.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. So we've already kind of used that 250 then, and kind of a, all right. I guess my first curiosity when I saw your map of which buildings you'd be putting the solar panels on, those are the oldest buildings on that site. I believe that building is 1930 something. And they're brick buildings. One reason why the district didn't want to keep those functional for students in them. They're old buildings, and most of them are brick buildings. And we're in a geographical location where earthquake is our biggest culprit as far as type of storm. So my question, did you consider doing some freestanding solar panel instead of putting on brick buildings? Because if we have an earthquake, the first thing that's going is anything that's not structurally prepared for an earthquake, which would be brick buildings.
So as part of the feasibility process, one of the very first things that we're tasked with is doing full structural engineering earthquake reviews. And we actually ran those buildings through the third-party structural engineer, and they determined that those roofs and those buildings are actually quite solid compared to several of the other buildings on site. Gyms tend to have much longer span roofs where you really wouldn't want to throw a bunch of weight up there and then have an earthquake. So they're well built, well constructed. They meet all the latest code of structural engineering. And the only reason we didn't consider the ground mounted systems is the moment you move to a ground mounted system is it substantially bumps the price of the project up, which then makes it much more difficult to be competitive in the Department of Commerce grant funds. Plus, we would have to take up quite a bit of land around the property. So it is something that, if you guys decide to move forward and you don't want it on those buildings, we could look at moving those to some ground mounts out in fields behind the school. But
Okay.
yeah, definitely the structural engineering review has been completed, and it is up to the latest codes there.
Okay, thank you for that, because that's not the report we got when we were considering closing the buildings. So that's good to hear that the buildings have improved structurally. As far as funding, one thing I'm happy to hear is we're thinking outside the box and looking at companies to partner to update roofs, to update bathrooms. We recently just went to taxpayers instead of doing something like that. So that I'm thrilled about. My concern is if the grants and the funding that you talked about from the federal side isn't enough, would we consider using funds out of the district dollars to update that? Because
when the board approved the feasibility study, the memo explicitly stated that the only thing that we would be contributing to this process was our staff's time to participate and information and collaborating on submitting grants or applications for things. That is what we clearly communicated in the memo, and that's clearly communicated in this whole process that we have communicated with our staff and our partners. And I think it also is subtly communicated in the news report article that came out on that day of that picture.
And then my last thing, thank you, I appreciate that clarification. You talked about making it easy to be maintained, meaning accessible, people to get up, wash it off as needed, or what other maintenance it needed. I'm guessing those would be staff, district staff maintenance people. So that would be an extra cost because that would be over the current span of maintenance, correct?
That would be one of the questions that we would have to ask. We've communicated that if we need to do this, that is actually, I think, a question that's going to come up from the board is what are the costs and how are those costs going to be covered?
Okay. So we got to think of grants and funding and partnership for our 1.8 million bottom line.
Well, it's my understanding that the 1.8 million is part of this process that if approved, it would be a Department of Commerce grant to fund the base installation of the project. And then we would need to look for additional grant and other source funding for updates to the buildings that need to happen first and for maintenance afterwards, if that's a requirement.
The grants from Department of Commerce pay the full installation, engineering, product costs of the full turnkey solar plus battery system and all of the electrical upgrades that are required. So all the electric panels, it just doesn't cover bathroom upgrades and roof upgrades, but everything else would be bundled into the 1.6.
Dr. Johnson, you had something?
Oh,
Yes, maybe.
yes, thank you. I just wanted to give gratitude to Josh and to Joan, and there's also another person, Ellen, on this call. Thank you so much for all the work that you've done, and I want to extend, thank you to Dr. Clifford and your staff. My question is about opportunity cost, with the understanding that, of course, these big numbers and granting and RFPs and all that. Our district has an amazing history of finding money and working with government entities and local entities to fundraise. So my question really is for Dr. Becky and Mr. Field and Gail Lavasser and other folks who would be key participants in this work and making sure that this feels like time well spent, and how much time and energy um, is able to be committed to this work. Because I know that grant writing in and of itself is a big job. And so then managing and honoring agreements can be even more challenging. So I guess my overarching question is, how do we feel? How do you feel, Dr. Clifford, about offering time and energy to this really important project?
I think that how I'd like to respond to that is we have needs at the community center. And we have partners right now that are willing to help us, that have grant writers on their teams that are willing, that have willingly stated that they will partner and help us leverage their resources and partner with us to do this work. I think that is a question that we're going to have to continually ask ourselves. Because the federal grant was the first proposal, and that was a small submission. It could be a 70-page application. And then that's where we're going to have to collectively say, can we do this? Outside of the microgrid study, you have experienced in your other role the needs at the community center. And so as landlords, we do need to make sure that we are mindful and planning for the future so that our tenants can functionally operate in the community center. And that balances having really meaningful and rent and leases that work for and make it accommodating for the people to participate. So we're not intending on making money, but we also need to make sure that that we can afford to sustain the building. So it's a combination of multiple things, but the rent alone is never going to cover these big this big facility repair and work that we need to do. So that's a great question, and yes, we have a need to commit to it, and we're going to have to every step of the way ask ourselves if we have the capacity to do this.
I deeply appreciate that. Thank you, Dr. Clifford. And, yes, I do wear multiple hats in this community. But with, my board hat firmly upon head at this moment, I'm super glad that we are putting some energy into this, and also very glad that we are each step of the way asking those important questions. Thank you so much.
Who ultimately decides which of the three final sites is the one where the project moves forward on?
So the way it worked was the $250,000 grant funded us working with the Energize Langley team to look at sites all over the community. So through that process, it funded us looking at 11 sites, and then it required us to narrow it down to 3 sites. So we had community vote, we had the Energize Langley vote, we had design team vote, we had the city vote, and they narrowed it down to these 3. All 3 are receiving feasibility studies, and all 3 sites can apply for Department of Commerce grants independently. So there's no reason that one project excludes the other.
Thank you.
And I'd say, just for reference, we're doing a project in LaConner. We did one for the middle school, and then they awarded a grant for the grade school right next door. So there is a precedent for them awarding multiple grants in the same community and even to the same district.
Thank you. That's good to know. I wanted to get some confirmation on which building or buildings were being energized. You mentioned the gymnasium several times, but it's my understanding, and I could be wrong on this, that the cafeteria that was mentioned is actually in an attached other gymnasium that is, I don't know if it's the same grid, and if that would be energized as well. If you're talking about energizing the trio of gymnasiums in that section, or just the one that the map had line for the power line going to. So I'm just curious how much of that section is being intended to be energized in an emergency.
So we're looking at that central gym that we pointed out, the cafeteria section, the bathrooms. My partner, who actually did all the battery designs, he was working with Jeff Lawson there at the district, and they were sorting through the electric panels. Jeff actually just got him some updated photos just this afternoon. So he's finalizing exactly which breakers and which loads are going to be powered by the system. Literally, like tomorrow, he's working on that. But I would have to get more detail. It's not powering the large other gym facilities. It's just powering that central one and then some of the smaller attached rooms. And that's to avoid having to heat and cool other large spaces.
Absolutely,
And
makes sense.
it's really dictated by which electrical sub panels feed which parts of the community center, and we can only power certain ones. So, but that's a question I can get back to you guys on, exactly which loads are powered.
That I don't need to know exactly which ones. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't misunderstanding about which one, because you had mentioned the cafeteria, which is in a mostly separate building. But if that's also included, that's great. I will trust the professionals to do the professional work. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding. I've got a couple more, but were there any other questions from? Let's get you, Mike.
I'm Rufus Rose, Maxwellton Road. I have a whole slew of questions. Why those buildings instead of the other school district buildings? Is this a Langley thing that we're piggybacking because those buildings are in Langley, or is this something that is to benefit the school district primarily?
I'm going to hand this over, maybe Joan.
Yeah, I can answer that. This was the grant was specifically to study buildings within the city of Langley, and so that's why we're considering that's why we did this on the community center and not the school district, which is outside of the city of Langley.
Would the school district approach this from the perspective of who benefits, the school district or Langley?
My understanding, or the way I'm looking at it currently, and that's just what I'm looking at currently, is this benefits the community, which includes our staff and students.
I guess I was thinking in terms of the other buildings. If this project were done on buildings that are not within the city limits of Langley, what would the benefit to the school district be?
So I'm just gonna respond. I'm gonna take that answer and run with it based on what I think you're asking. And if I'm not answering correctly, then you can let me know. Right now, this is a project that came out of the city of Langley. It is not something that we as a school district, it's too big of a project for a school district to be taking on for our schools. And so we would not be initiating it on our own for our schools. There are things that we're doing through Climate Action Committee and some other work that we're doing to make sure that we're doing energy efficiency design and decisions. But this is not something that we are self-initiating. We are recognizing that that it will have a benefit, and it will benefit the community center throughout the year, and it also will benefit the community. And if it reduces costs for us and creates efficiencies, then that is going to support the school district overall.
Another question is, who would own these fixtures? All this stuff, I believe, is technically fixtures added to the buildings. Who owns them when this is done?
Once it's physically attached to the community center, it would be the community center that owns it and that the grant would be awarded to. So because the school district owns it, I guess it would be the school district technically that owns the infrastructure.
Is there any potential profit from the electricity that is generated that could be sold back to whoever our supplier is?
Because the electrical usage at the site is so high, even with the large system, it only offsets 30% of the annual consumption at the site. So there would not be enough excess energy to sell back and get a check at the end of the year. The system would have to be increased over threefold to exceed the usage of the building.
I guess that covers the thrust of my curiosity.
I do have, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I talking about benefits. So I want to be really clear. Even if there's never a disaster, knock on wood, we would be cutting the energy costs of this building by 30% because 30% of it approximately would be provided by solar panels instead of PSE. So that's one benefit. Another is, it sounds to me, and everyone else keep me honest here, it sounds to me like this would unlock the ability to go seek grants for things like a new roof, bathroom repair, kitchen repair, that due to it being coupled with the solar project, we would be more likely to receive than if we just went out standalone trying to get grants for these improvements.
Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. That's excellent. I guess my question to you, and maybe you'll answer this question on the 18th, your next presentation. There is definitely a buy-in on our end, but there's got to be a buy-in when it comes to your guys' decision-making, looking at the 3 different locations and determining which one has the least amount of cost to start this project. Meaning, for example, the roof, the bathroom, things of that nature, where the church may not have that expense. Because it sounds like you're only going to pick one. Is that you're going to do all 3?
So
Whichever ones get the funding, whichever ones get the grants, is my understanding.
Is that
all 3 sites are welcome to apply independently to the Department of Commerce. So yeah, all we were doing is narrowing it down to the 3 and then providing full feasibility studies to all 3 sites. And then it'll be up to each group. If one of you want to apply, all 3 of you want to apply, there's nothing stopping anyone from applying just because one of the other selected sites applies to one of the grants.
all right? Excellent. Thank you for clarifying.
I would imagine that if there were, knock on wood, emergency, we would need more capacity than we could provide at the community center anyhow, for the community as a whole.
I guess my concern, like you said, we'd have to get our roof done in our bathrooms. We'd have to clean our house before we can start this project, and that's a big buy-in and cost for us. And if we're not using school dollars, that's a lot. 1.8 plus, yeah.
The 1.8 is for the solar. The cost for the roofing and that sort of thing is separate, and the 1.8 is not something is fully covered by the grant. Yeah. So I do have a couple more questions and comments, just things that popped up. I was very curious about how long the battery would hold up, but you answered that, so I appreciate that. I was a little concerned to see that it had the least life. It makes perfect sense, but that it was the least useful, as it were, when it's most likely to be needed. When our windstorms hit in the winter, it would have the shortest life, but that's clearly just the nature of the technology, and completely understand that. I am curious about the maintenance costs. You said once a year someone needs to go up and wash it. Is that just like a spray it down with a hose? Is that like wash it with a soap and water? Is it like are we talking about an afternoon or a week? Is, I guess, my question there.
Really, it's an afternoon, spraying the panels off. You can use like one of those RV extendable brushes that hook to the end of a hose and just go up there and knock debris off. There are many customers of ours that do it once every 3 years. That site doesn't have a lot of trees around it, so naturally the rain here might clean the panels. So that's the main thing with the solar. The battery system is going to require a maintenance contract with the battery manufacturer, and we will have some details of that in the final feasibility report. But that is required for them to be able to guarantee those type of batteries for that 15 years plus. Think of it like your cell phone battery that runs down and dies after a couple of years. They want to make sure that this battery stays running for the 15 years, so they do the checks every year, and we'll provide that cost for that as part of the study.
And are there locations that you've worked with previously that have gotten other sources of funding to fund that maintenance, ongoing grants or something like that?
We have not. So typically what people do is they consider part of the savings, the maintenance costs. So like in your case, you guys have one primary meter. I don't know if you individually bill people, but let's say you take a portion of the savings, use that towards the maintenance, and then reduce the rest off of your renter's bills. But that's kind of the model that we've seen in the past. And sometimes, when you issue the RFP, you can request, depending how your contracting terms are, you can ask for an initial 5 to 10 year maintenance contract as part of the RFP response. So that's really up to your team and how that RFP is issued.
Thank you. I think that's all of the questions that I had.
I just thought of one more. I know that PSC has incentives for residential systems, residential battery storage systems, where they can pull power from them in exchange for some financial incentive. Would a large community system like this be eligible for a similar incentive?
So actually, we at Cascadia Renewables right now, we are close partners with Puget Sound Energy, and we're actually in the process of writing a white paper for the utility company to develop a commercial battery program that's similar to the residential program. And so earlier when I mentioned that this battery could be reprogrammed to meet whatever the new rate programs are, if suddenly in 2 years they kick in a program that says, hey, if you're willing to discharge 50% of your battery every afternoon in the summer when everyone has their AC on, we'll pay you X amount per month. You could sign up for that program at that time. You don't have to be partaking in the program when it's installed on the roof. You can always sign up at a later date and just simply change the programming of the system.
Excellent. Good to know.
I want to thank the team. We thought this was going to be a half an hour presentation, and so I'm grateful that you took some extra time. I'm also appreciative of our team because they have to now present, and they stayed much longer than probably expected. But thank you so much for taking the time and giving this additional presentation for our board to ask questions and our community to be fully informed of the final steps of this process. And I'll see you on the 18th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
So, okay, yep.
Now we'll turn to our next item on the agenda, just keeping us checking Zoom. Also, there are no questions currently in Q&A, which is our committee updates. So Dr. Clifford.
Perfect. Thank you. So one of the board goals was to make sure that we had each district committee we were able to monitor the outcomes in at least 2 updates via superintendent report and or workshop presentation throughout the year. And so in every one of my superintendent reports, I try to make sure that there's an update. Sometimes I'm actually linking the notes and the agendas and or agendas. And this is your report. And I am going to, we initially scheduled this for an hour. I'm going to see if we can efficiently go through this while still doing it justice. And if anybody who was a part of the first presentation needs to leave, they're welcome to leave. So if we go to the next slide, do we have a clicker? No. Next slide, please. And it is also embedded in our social academic goal and our logistics goal. And then we'll go to the next slide. So this is just our purpose today. One of the things that I need, the link might have been removed, but we have the council and membership guidelines that every single council has. I believe that I linked that in one of my reports. And it just makes sure it's really clear about how council interacts with superintendent, board, administration, and staff, so that some councils asked for clarification on that. And so those guidelines really clarify that engagement because councils are advisory and they and so we wanted to make sure that that was clearly clarified. Each council has a charter, and so and they're linked to each of the sections. And it has a very similar format. We're not going to go through each of those charters, but they are available for preview. And with that being said, I'm going to start with the climate action. And then I'm also going to ask Mr. Lawson if he wants to leave after this, because you have to start very early in the morning to make sure that our buildings are up and running for school.
Next slide, please. Is it Christy driving? Okay. All right, so our Climate Action Committee is made up of these members presented here on the board. And this, just a quick little refresher of how this came to be is we had some students that came to the board last spring and were demanding climate action. And so Dr. Mocha created a climate action memo with a climate action plan, which then Dr. Clifford, when she came on board after we started initiating a climate action committee, provided further direction. And then this led to us seeking our membership. We have our administration, our students, our staff that represent the high school and middle school, and then I'm also representing the elementary school, and then our wonderful community members. So thank you, Linda, for being here. And then these are our meeting dates that we've had. So the meeting dates, that first initial meeting was an informational meeting back in May of 2025. And then all of the green are the dates that we've had meetings so far. April 13th is our next one coming up. And then May 18th is highlighted in blue because that is going to be focused a lot on outreach for getting new student membership, because the 2 students that we have participating this year and have really been helpful in our committee formation are graduating. So they are seeking some outreach and we're seeking membership. And so that's an exciting date to look forward to, May 18th. Like Dr. Clifford mentioned, we have our charter, which guided our work, and our action plan, which are linked there for the board to review. We have updated status every month that we meet. And the 3 areas that we are focusing on are the facilities review, physical efforts and visibility, and then our policy work. And so if you can go back, please. So what we've accomplished so far, it's like, whoa, the pace has really picked up here. I'm like, whoa. What we've accomplished so far, and this is part of the work that we've done, which you'll see not yet, but on the next slide with McKinstry, one of their recommendations in our early work was to establish green teams. So really helping to make that climate action change start with the youngest grade levels and kind of trickle up, if you will. And so we've established a green team at the elementary, thanks to Kate Miller, and then at the high school, thanks to Seth. We are starting our recycling program at the elementary school, and Jeff, who is on the Climate Action Committee, is also really helping that work and helping that green team. And then we have some solar projects happening at the elementary school and the ALE. And this is based on work that started in the spring with Tim Economou, am I saying that right, Linda? And Jay Freundlich. And so they had presented to our staff about some solar education, and then some teachers have some buy-in in that. And so we've started some solar projects, and the ALE has also invested in that and wrote a grant to get some solar kits. So those are some exciting accomplishments that we have in our early stages of the committee. You can go to the next slide.
Okay, we started our work with McKinstry, working through the Clean Buildings Act, which is a requirement by state. We've started that work. We've already done our benchmarking, and we are in the middle of gathering a lot of information from the systems that we have in place, including the systems that we will be upgrading through the bond, which will help us actually lower our energy use, which will also help us just save money in the long run. I am working with McKinstry seeking a grant that would do inventory for all of our buildings and all the systems that we use within that within those buildings, that will also help us create a preventative maintenance program that is also part of the Green Buildings Act. We already talked about the microgrid feasibility study at the community center, so I don't think we need to review that. Do it again. I can do that again.
I just want to note that the 2 student members are on the Zoom call, so.
All right. One of the things that you'll know, and I really want to thank the 2 of them because they have been leading this. They've been doing the planning, the leading of this meeting, and this group, and they've done a phenomenal job. All of these committees, it couldn't be done without the committee participants, but also the leads that have been shepherding the work. So thank you. The Climate Action Committee.
Do we want to check for any questions here? While Mr. Lawson is still here, or you can content to answer them at the end. Or would you feel more comfortable saving them all to the end?
think, respectfully, Director Williford, we're at almost 8 o'clock, and I read this as status and updates, and so I think maybe just get through status and
Totally
updates
fair.
and go
Yep.
from there.
Just one.
And we do have a thing at the end for reflection. So if there's a few reflections,
Excellent.
we can do that at the end. And you can leave. It's okay. If there's questions that are directed to you, we will follow up after. So we're going to move to the equity. One of the things that I want to mention is that the climate action is the only one that has an actual action plan, and we shared that with you, and I shared that with you in one of our reports. The other ones, it's built into like Equity Committee has a memo, and some other pieces. But for our members and the Climate Action Committee, they needed that concrete plan so that they could see how we were doing the work. And it's a little bit different. The work of the Climate Action Committee has a little bit different structure than the work of the remaining committees. So the Equity Committee, you will see on the next slide, our members. And I do want to highlight Kyla Stelling and Jenny Holbrook. They were the ones that launched this and led this as the co-leads. And we started together at the beginning of the year. They have done yeoman's work. They've been doing it for many, many years. And both of them, for different reasons, decided to step off and are showing their leadership around equity in different ways. One is in school to be school counseling and just can't have the additional commitment. And one is actually supporting and leading our Speak Up work with our students. And so doing hands-on on the ground work in the schools. And so really grateful for them. We have one high school student. We're also going to have to, she is a senior, so we're going to have to do recruitment for that role. And then you can see we've added a couple of more staff members. Justin Silva joined, and then Sarah Gillette to support and round out the elementary. We didn't have that represented in the past. And then we have 2 community members that consistently come and are supporting us in the work. I highlighted in blue the meetings that we have not participated in yet because they're in the future. And so that's my code there. There's nothing else more than that. And we're going to move to the next slide. There's a charter. This is our action plan. So at the beginning of the year, we just did introduction. We reviewed the equity team work and goals because we had new members. And so we wanted to kind of ground us in what the equity team work and goals were. And then later on, we introduced the charter and mentorship guidelines and started to really dig into our PD and our Speak Up at Schools training PD, and then also the upcoming Interrupting Hate Speech PD. And one of our participants is a community member who also is joining our cohort and has been attending our cohort for the Interrupting Hate Speech. And then we also calibrate as a team because with the shifting in leadership and adding new members, once you have one new member, you are a new team. And so we've been recalibrating and just kind of figuring out how we all work together and still honoring the initiation of the work and the committee while also moving forward with a new team together. And we have discussion items which I call important topics that every time we come together, we make sure that we're unpacking and discussing and sharing relevant information that's our current realities that we're navigating. And then we also are continuing to talk about our professional development. So we've reestablished, I feel like we really have grounded us in our new committee and reestablished that. This committee is the liaison to our equity work. We are reviewing and bringing the work to them, and they're also participating on the training and cohorts. One example of what we did is during the most recent principal interviews, we had an equity prompt, and they helped to co-design and co-create it. And then open dialogue about those important topics to make sure that we're having a laser-like focus on our work to support our students and our culture and climate within the schools. And then I'm going to hand it over to special ed, and Mrs. Phillips is going to be doing the next 2.
Thank you. Next slide, please. We have a pretty well-rounded membership in our special education. We call it the SEAC because we love a good acronym around here. Special Education Advisory Council membership. I want to shout out to Gwendy. She has been advocating for this for a lot of years. So a lot of the fact that this exists is her consistent advocacy. So here is our group, and it's a collection of, and I just broke it down by participation percentage, 50% parent guardian, 14% community members, 36% staff, and a lot of people within that wear multiple hats. So we've decided how we're gonna, which hat we'll bring to that table, knowing that at times you might have to switch to a different one. We have recruited and brought in an outside provider. So there's so much connection or overlap in special education with outside providers who might serve a student in an area we might also as well. So this started back in November where we had a special education just open family night that led to, and if we want to go to the next slide, because our dates are not all that exciting just yet. Recruitment and review of interested members that launched the committee that first met in February. We meet again tomorrow night. We were supposed to meet last Thursday, but we shifted for finalist panel interviews. And so we'll be looking at prioritization of feedback from that family night to guide some goal development for our committee. We will also, in future months, look at the program review feedback that we will also be having here at our next board meeting to align some goal development, including a mission, visions for special education. And then we can start looking at deliverables for this year and then for future years as well. Next slide, please. Instructional council. Next slide. We have an array of staff members from elementary to middle to high in administration. So there's representation from a TK to 12 lens in this group that meets monthly. We met just on Tuesday. So we've had to make some changes because some people are also on a different committee. So trying to find a day and time that locks in for everyone is a challenge, but I think we have found our groove. Next steps, please. The team met in July. This was initiated through union and administrative collaboration. In the fall, we established some goals as a group. We're looking at, and then we created a K-12 curriculum and assessment inventory audit we're in the middle of it right now. So we're pushing those out to ask for all teachers to share with us what they're using and what percentage so that we can look at what's being used. So that we can display what all of our current adopted and supplemental materials are, and then looking at the professional development calendar and how it aligns to our lens of instructional council and input on that calendar for the future years. And then finally looking at staff and student data and survey feedback from professional development that we've had this year and years past to make sure we're making informed choices for the professional development that our teachers are needing for future years.
And I just want to add, the instructional council was part of the collective bargaining agreement. So it came out of the teachers' collective bargaining agreement, which is why the other councils have external folks on it. This is an internal committee and still a district committee that we wanted to share an update. And I'm really excited about all of these committees, but the instructional stuff, I get super excited about it, and I geek out about it a little bit. And Mrs. Phillips is doing and Miss Coda, they're doing an exceptional job in leading these committees and councils.
Okay.
No, it's late, Andrea, and I know you're not a fan of community input, but we waited for you. So I find it very fitting that you're short with the community member input.
Downs.
So my question, starting at the climate committee, was I only saw 2 names, and the young people that were here when we first started the discussion, are they still involved?
Yeah, and they're online tonight.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, so they let me know that they wouldn't be here in person, but they would online, and so
because there
really
was like
appreciate
6 people that came to the climate.
No,
Okay.
I was surprised too, but we did have active outreach, and we did just for the people that did show up, remind them like, hey, for your fellow student members, can you please reach out to them and see if they would like to participate? And it's in its infancy as a committee, and we're hoping that we'll gain some traction, but we do have the full support of the members, and we're grateful
Awesome.
for that.
Thank you. Yeah, I think what gets me most excited is when we involve the students in all these conversations, how we can improve. Climate committee being one of them. Instructional would be another one. Sped ed, we actually discussed having some kiddos there as well. I think that's huge. So that was my question. Thank you.
I would just like to note that the question, first of all, the question was not whether we would have community input on this, but when. And also, I will refer you back to our policy 0002 about maintaining the dignity of everyone involved and not making personal attacks during comments.
I have a reflection that's not a question to be answered now, but for a future update of this sort, which is that when we discussed the charter of the climate committee, we discussed at some point setting climate goals or climate targets and needing a balance of being the deliberation and seeking input from professionals. And so I realize those aren't going to happen overnight, but I would love to see at least a timeline for their eventual creation.
So
I'd like to piggyback on that
Okay.
because I had something very similar, which was we had a request for some recommendation on climate policy along with that. And again, I don't want to rush that process, but I'd like an update alongside that. At some point.
Clarification, it was a request for whether or not there should be policy and what that would look like, but we left it specifically recognizing that a policy at a school district level may not be appropriate from the committee.
So what I can tell you is that we do have policy on our action plan, and we have the date of that by the end of the year, by June. to make some recommendations. What we have talked about in the committee is that there's a whole board toolkit around climate action, which I am not bringing to you because we are leveraging this district committee, and they did review different components of it. And most of those districts that are leveraging and focusing on work around climate action, it is a collective effort. It is not just an individual district taking it all on. It's partnered with the county or the city or different organizations. So we have that conversation. We've already started doing some initial brainstorming of some components that can be included in the policy, recognizing that we want to make sure that language is something that is reasonable and doable. Like if we want to have zero emissions, that's not going to work in our district because we have buses. And we need to get around the island. And there are certain buses that will work on the island and certain parts of it and some that will not. So we are engaged in that process, and we will come back with something, whether it is formal goals or a policy that has those goals built into it. Or recommendations for a board policy, sorry.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I, on the flip side, I like that each of these committees was able to show achievements and wins. So balancing short-term and long-term.
Thank you. That answered my question as well. Anything else on any of these committees? Okay.
I just want to comment that one of the benefits of the Climate Action Committee is really having these leaders in our community that are centered around climate action come together. So Linda Irvine is here tonight, and I had the other members that were listed that really bring a lot from our community. So it feels, yes, it's part of our district, but it's this opening up to the wider community, and it's a joint effort, which I really appreciate. And I'm really glad for the community members and students.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on. Before we move on, I'm going to check to make sure there's no QA. Yes, there is no QA. So we'll move on to our policy review. Policy review, our first one. I'll actually turn it over to you, Director Downs.
Yes. Sounds good.
Oh, are you good?
I know.
Okay.
Go for it, Dr. Clifford. I can talk now.
Okay, we didn't coordinate this week, so I just wanted to make sure. I will tell you that the next three policies are all updated to meet the updated WASDA policies. They were a little bit behind, and they were some things that came to the forefront as needing to get in front of and get these completed. And most of these are really just small changes in wording. For instance, in the home hospital, it is changing shall to will. So that's, I'm going to quickly go through all of them. And then if you want to come back and talk about them, we can, if you're okay with that. That is, and then some things here, again, it's just, it's not really, shall to will is a material and substantial change. And it's not content heavy material and substantial changes. And if you look here on the field trips, it's changing classroom procedures to activities. And just it's more wordsmithing, changing which to that. And so again, it's really more so wordsmiths that align with some updated WASDA policy. And then I'm going to go to the third one, which is homeless, what is considered homeless students. And the only thing that we have changed in here is including the word experiencing homeless, because that is how we frame and honor our students. And it just removed, there was some language that was deleted because of the updates in the WASDA policy. And so again, this is primarily wordsmithing, and then removal of some language that is no longer appropriate for the procedure or for the policy.
And Dr. Clifford,
Yeah.
I recognize that for some, these are minor changes, but as a human who qualified under the McKinney-Vento program in school, I really appreciate this change of changing it from recognizing that it is an experience that some of our students navigate, and actually quite a lot of our students navigate it in our district. And as a former McKinney-Vento student who experienced homelessness, I appreciate it.
Yeah. And I want to name that was our district team's recommendation. It was that wording did not come from WASDA.
If it's possible to get that feedback back to WASDA, I would appreciate it.
We can do so.
I have a question about, there's like a parenthetical like editor's note, which I'm not sure if that was supposed to make it into the policy itself, or if it was supposed to be for boards to discuss and remove before adopting into policy.
Since I moved through all the policies, are you on the last
Oh,
one?
I'm sorry. I'm still on 3115. Yeah.
Oh,
it's
perfect. I just
slightly
wanted to
up.
make
Yep,
sure.
right
Okay,
there.
thank
There's a big italicized. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's currently in our policy manual since it's not struck out or added. So it seems like it's not the end of the world. So perhaps more of like a housekeeping item.
Oh, yeah, I think that looks like it might be a typo. The parenthetical in front of the informed.
Starting at the top of what we can see right now.
Oh, the
editor's
editor's
note, the
note.
following bracketed information, etc. That doesn't seem like the actual wording of the policy. It seems like
Correct.
the stage direction.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I missed that.
And then, yes, that square bracket at the beginning. And there's probably one at the end. Yes, there is one at the very end.
Perfect. Thank you for catching those, and we will fix those typos.
The only thing that I noticed was on the second one, field trips, excursions, and outdoor education. It's removing and public transportation. I don't know if that would have material. I know that some of our field trips for, I think it's 8th graders, use public transportation.
Yes, we train on orca cards and utilize the light rail and sounder and ferry. And our goal is to, at some point, to be able to utilize only public transportation systems for the excursions.
And so this is actually making that easier by making it so prior approval isn't necessary. Excellent. I just had to parse that through and make sure that's the way it was going to make it easier, not harder.
Well, there's another version that I didn't get it up here, I'm sorry, but for public transportation, it's private vehicles. We kept public transportation and then school district transportation, all three versions, because they're all used.
So then we will pause. We need to pause on this. So since this doesn't have that, is what you're saying.
Yeah, in fact, I'll flip it quickly.
Okay.
As soon as I take it off of the screen here. So
Yeah, we can make sure it's in the final form for the next meeting. That's perfectly fine.
Perfect. Thank you.
And that was all I had. Okay.
Anything else on any of the policies? The first one, second, or third? Okay.
Before we adjourn, I did want to note that at our next board meeting, we'll be talking curriculum a little bit more, and we're looking forward to that. That's all I've got for you. This meeting is adjourned. Good night.